What's up guys, and welcome to my Hysilens 4.0 updated guide. In this video I'm taking you over everything you do need to know in order to understand and Builder, including a kit overview, best Lightcones, best Relic set and ornaments, stats you want to run for Mainstat and Substats, and finally team building ideas. Hysilens' basic attack will deal physical damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her skill has a 100% base chance to increase damage taken by all enemies by 20% for 3 turns, and also will deal physical damage based off her attack to all enemies. Her ultimate deploys a zone that decreases all enemies' attack by 15% and defense by 25%, and will also deal physical damage equal to 200% of Hysilens' attack to all enemies. For every 1 instance of dot taken by an enemy target in the zone, Hysilens deals physical dot equal to 80% of her attack to them. The damage will be triggered at the start of each turn or after 1 attack by an ally target up to 8 times. It cannot repeatedly trigger the effect either. The zone lasts for 3 turns and decreases by 1 at the start of Hysilens every turn, and being knocked down will also dispel the zone. Her talent: when an ally attacks, there is a 100% base chance for Hysilens to inflict the hit enemy with one of the following states, being any of the dot states. Priority is given to a different state. While in one of the dot states each turn, they will take respective wind, fire, lightning dot equal to 25% of Hysilens' attack for 2 turns. And for bleed specifically, the enemy target will take physical dot equal to 20% of their max HP and up to 25% of Hysilens' attack for 2 turns. Her technique creates a special dimension for 20 seconds that goes forward. Enemies in the dimension will be inflicted with Soul Struck. Soul Struck enemies cannot actively attack allied targets, and entering battle with Soul Struck enemies has a 100% base chance to inflict each hit enemy target with 2 of the following states, being a dot state, all of which are equivalent to the ones provided by Hysilens' talent effect. Hysilens A2 will make it to where at the start of the combat, Hysilens will automatically deploy a zone equivalent to her ultimate for 3 turns. Anytime she deploys a zone will recover a skill point. Her A4 will be when she uses her ultimate. If enemy targets are currently inflicted with dot states, all the dots currently applied to the enemy target will immediately produce damage equal to 150% of their original damage. And for her A6, for every 10% of Hysilens' effect hit rate that exceeds 60%, increases her damage dealt by 15% up to a maximum of 90%. And finally, for her Eidolons, her E1 will make it to where while Hysilens exists on the field, dots dealt by ally targets will be 116% of their original value. When Hysilens inflicts a dot state via her talent, there's a 100% base chance to additionally inflict an instance of a dot state that is equivalent from the one of the original talent effect and can coexist with pre-existing states. Her E2 will make it to where while her zone is active, the damage boost effect from Trace the Fiddle of Pearls, which is the 90% damage bonus up to, will now apply to all allies. Her E4 will make it to where when her zone is active, reduces all type res of enemies by 20%, and her E6, while the zone is active, at the start of each turn or after 1 attack by an allied target, increases the maximum trigger count for Hysilens' physical dot to 12, and the multiplier of the damage dealt by 20%. For Lightcone options, of course, overall her best performing one is her own signature Lightcone, providing a 40% increase to the wearer's effect hit rate. When the wearer inflicts an enemy with a debuff, there's an 80% base chance for them to enter the enthrallment state for 3 turns. Enemies in enthrallment, for every 1 debuff applied by the wearer on the target, increases the target's received dot by 5%, stacking up to 6 times. When the target gets attacked by an ally, increases the attacker's speed by 10% for 3 turns. This Lightcone is not only good for building Hysilens, it also improves her own personal dot damage while also improving the team's dot damage. 40% effect hit rate is good because she does have a pretty high requirement of 120% effect hit rate, and every attack Hysilens has, including her basic attack because of her talent, will inflict a debuff, so the enthrallment state is not a problem. On top of that, she is able to inflict every single kind of dot, so you are able to get the full stack bonus of receiving dot damage, which is a total of 30% dot vulnerability, so not only is all her talents, dots, and such going to be much more powerful, dots inflicted by characters like Black Swan and Kafka are also going to get significantly improved. On top of that, depending on your builds on the team, the 10% attacker speed increase is going to be very nice, primarily for Kafka and also your support or sustain on the team. But of course, that does depend on your build, what kind of speed threshold you're going for, but depending on your builds, there's probably going to be one at least character on the team that probably benefits from it. So not only is this Lightcone great for supportive side, it's also great for her herself, making it her overall best in slot. If you want to do more damage overall with your Hysilens, Black Swan signature Lightcone is the next best option, increasing the wearer's effect hit rate by 40% when the wearer deals damage to an enemy inflicted with dot. Each respectively grants 1 stack of profit, stacking up to 4 times. In a single battle, only 1 stack of profit can be granted for each type of dot. Each stack of profit will increase the wearer's attack by 5% and enables dot dealt to the enemy to ignore 7.2% of the target's defense. Same effect hit rate, so you don't lose out on build stats, so it's equally as easy to get her to the requirement. you're able to practically always have full uptime on Prophet as Hysilens inflicts every single dot, so you're able to get it really quickly. And so having 4 stacks gives Hysilens 20% attack and 28.8% defense ignore for her dots. So it's less supportive as her own signature, but it makes Hysilens herself do more damage. Another strategy you can use with this Lightcone is if you have both her signature and Black Swan's. You can give Hysilens the Black Swan signature and give Black Swan Hysilens signature. That was something you could do before Black Swan buffs. You can still do it after Black Swan buffs. It pretty much just lowers Black Swan's output a little bit while increasing Hysilens. So overall, it can end up being better. And so if you do have this Lightcone laying around or you want to do that specifically, you can very much do it for very good results. You can also use Xiaochu's signature Lightcone, providing the wearer's 60% effect hit rate. After the wearer uses a basic attack skill or ultimate to attack an enemy target, there's a 60% base chance to inflict unarmored on the target. In unarmored, enemy will receive 10% increased damage for 2 turns. If the target is under a dot state inflicted by the wearer, there's a 60% base chance to upgrade unarmored to the cornered state, which additionally increases the damage the enemy target receives by 14% for 2 turns. So it's even easier to build her because this Lightcone provides 60% effect hit rate, which is 20% more than the other signatures. And it pretty much focuses less on her own personal damage and more on team support by giving up to a 24% vulnerability. Just because she is able to get the full effect, you can inflict unarmored by just attacking, and she inflicts dots, so an extra 14% is easy, so it is a total of 24% vulnerability. So she will do more damage, your team will do more damage, it just sacrifices more self-buffing and such. It's not going to be good as overall support as her signature or her damage like Black Swans, but it is still a very much usable option on her. Kafka's signature option also does work, increasing the wearer's damage up by 24%. After every attack launched by the wearer increases their speed by 4.8%, stacking up to 3 times. Hitting an enemy that is not already eroded has a 100% base chance to erode the target, which is also considered as being shock and will receive lightning damage dot at the start of each turn equal to 60% of the wearer's attack for 1 turn. This is definitely not as good as the other options as it doesn't provide any effect hit rate, so building her might be a little more tricky. The damage dot increase is nice for personal damage, and the speed increase definitely is able to help you get higher speed thresholds even when running attack boots, which is very common. It also gives you an additional dot debuff, which is especially good for if you're not already hitting the max debuffs to get the full physical dot effect of her ultimate. So this Lightcone is not as good as the others, but it still definitely does hold up. So if you don't have the others but you have this one, you could use it on her. And then for 4-star options, Eyes of the Prey being one of them, providing 20% effect hit rate and increasing dot by 24%. At S5, it is 40% effect hit rate and 48% increase the dot. Very simple, effect hit rate increase just as good as the signature of Black Swan or Hysilens herself. And then overall dot damage being increased by 48%, so that's just going to be a good overall increase. Very simple yet very good Lightcone. Good Night and Sleep Well also does work. For every debuff the enemy target has, the damage dealt by the wearer increases by 12%, stacking up to 3 times, and also applies the dot. And at S5, it is 24% increase to the wearer's damage dealt. Hysilens inflicts so many debuffs, so it doesn't really matter for the actual requirement. 3 stacks of debuffs is very easy, so it really just becomes a free 72% increase to damage dealt, which also applies the dot. So it can do more damage than Eyes of the Prey, it's just it makes it harder to build since it also doesn't really apply any effect hit rate. But if you are still able to hit the requirement without running an effect hit rate Lightcone, this actually becomes a lot more valuable. For relic sets, the only one you really want to use is 4-piece Prisoner. 2-piece increases attack by 12%, 4-piece for every dot the enemy target is inflicted with. The wearer will ignore 6% of its defense when dealing damage to it, and is valid for a max of 3 dots. 2-piece increases overall damage, as dot characters, one of the only ways to increase their damage is attack, so the 2-piece providing attack is good, and 4-piece provides you up to a 18% defense ignore for dot. Which, on that team, especially now with Hysilens and her being able to inflict all kinds of dots, and especially with buff Black Swan, it's easy to have full uptime on this. You'll never not have full uptime on this, so it's really a free 12% attack and a free 18% defense ignore for dot damage. Best damage output is going to want this on any dot DPS, and that still holds true to this day. So for best results, run this 4-piece. If you don't have that, you can do 4-piece champion set with 2-piece increasing physical damage by 10%. 4-piece after the wearer attacks or is hit, their attack increases by 5% for the rest of the battle, up to 5 times. 2-piece is just increasing physical damage, so any physical damage he does is going to get an increase, of course. And 4-piece is up to a 25% increase to attack. Of course, how fast you stack up this set definitely does depend on how much you get hit and or your own speed. So if you are able to fully stack it up, it is a usable set. It's still going to be worse than the dot set every way possible, but it is definitely usable while you farm the dot set. And then when combining 2-piece, you have a few options. You can do 2-piece physical with 2-piece of the attack percent increasing sets, so 2-piece hero, 2-piece with soaring, 2-piece dot set, or 2-piece musketeers, or 2-piece of any of those and do 2-piece pioneers for 12% increased damage to enemies with debuffs. For Planar Ornaments, best damage output and overall performance goes to Revelry, increasing the wearer's attack by 12% when the wearer's attack is higher than or equal to 2400/3600, increases dot damage dealt by 12%/24% respectively. As I mentioned with 2-piece dot, overall attack increase is going to be nice, and now you can get up to a 24% increase to dot damage dealt, which is going to be better than any other Planar Ornament, and the requirement is very simple. Usually Hysilens, even outside of battle, has an insanely high attack stat, but even if you're not able to fully reach 3600 due to your build, do remember that Kafka herself has a big attack buff in her kit. So when you are running Kafka alongside Hysilens in battle, when you actually go into battle and you hit the requirement for the effect hit rate, which you're going to naturally hit anyways, you'll get that attack buff, which can actually set you way above 3600 to get the full effect of this ornament. So for overall damage and performance, this is by far the best. If you're struggling a bit with effect hit rate and you just need a tad bit more, Pan Cosmic also works, providing 10% effect hit rate. Meanwhile, the wearer's attack increases by an amount that is equal to 25% current effect hit rate, up to a max of 25%. So it provides 10% effect hit rate and gives you up to 25% attack. Not as good as Revelry for damage overall, but still definitely does work. And as I mentioned, if you need that extra 10% effect hit rate, and it's the reason that it helps you get above 120%, you can very much run this no problem at all. As building her to 120% effect hit rate is going to fully max out the set anyways, so it becomes a free 25% attack at the same time, while also making her slightly easier to build. So if you do need the extra effect hit rate, you can very much use the set. If you are able to hit the speed thresholds, Glammoth also does work, 12% attack, usually good. If the wearer speed is equal to or higher than 135/160, the wearer will deal 12%/18% more damage. So the requirement here would be reaching 160 speed with the full effect. That of course depends on your build, depends on if you have Hysilens like on the team or not, if you have any speed buffs on the team, since there's a lot of variables that can affect these actual performances. Since Dot, as I mentioned, has Hysilens Lightcone, you can run Ruan Mei on the team, E1, so on and so forth. Even if you're not able to hit full 160 speed with your Hysilens in battle, 12% damage increase is still going to be fine. It still makes the set usable, but you definitely want to try to hit 160 just for the full performance. So if you are able to use this, or if you just happen to have a really good set laying around, you can definitely use it. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, you want to run effect hit rate. If you are able to reach 120% effect hit rate via a substats plus anything else like the Lightcone and such, in that case, you can just swap out effect hit rate for attack percent for best damage output. For the feat, you can do attack percent or speed. Attack percent usually does do better since Hysilens doesn't have to have an insane amount of speed. The main dot sources comes from allies attacking and applying Hysilens talent, which she herself doesn't have to attack for. But if you want her to attack a lot as well, just to apply more debuffs and also get your ultimate quicker potentially, in that case you can run speed to try to hit a higher threshold, or instead you can run attack percent boots and try to get a high speed threshold that way. With Hysilen's signature and how much speed she does have in her base kit, you can very much get to at least 134 very easily, and then if you have speed buffs on the team, you can honestly push that up to 160.1 without speed boots at all. But if you really want to hit a really high speed threshold, then you can run speed boots. For the orb, you can do physical damage or attack percent. Physical damage is slightly better, but if you have a really good attack percent orb, that's going to perform just as good. And for the link rope, attack percent is going to outperform energy regen, but if you want to get more ultimates for more dot procs, you can run energy regen. Just be sure if you're doing that, you still do hit the 3600 attack in battle for the Revelry set if you are running it. For the substats, first prioritize effect hit rate to 120% to get the full damage bonus of her kit, also to ensure all her debuffs will land with their base chances, and also the Lightcone options she does have. That is going to be your first and foremost goal. Then your speed is going to be the next goal depending on the breakpoint you want to hit. If you're running speed boots, then you probably are going for a goal that is honestly above 160.1 just because you're able to reach that kind of goal without the speed boots. So if you're running speed boots, you probably want to aim for as close as getting 3 turns within the first MLC cycle. Otherwise, if you're running attack percent boots, which most people should, just aim enough to get to breakpoint. That's honestly all you need. You don't need a super fast Hysilens. But if you want to get the hyper speed, you can very much aim for that. Just again, be sure to account for any speed buffs on the team. Past that is just more attack percent, as that's really the only other thing to increase your overall damage. And finally, for team building, of course, her main role and only real role is going to be in the dot team, and who is also integral to that dot team is going to be none other than Kafka herself. So this is practically the cornerstone you always want to have. There's not really another team that you want to run besides these two, as any other variant is going to be a significant drop-off. The third slot can go to a support or Black Swan as a third DPS, and by third DPS I mean third dot DPS. So it's going to look like this. When she does get buffed alongside the 4.0 update, this is actually the best dot team you can run as a trio, outperforming any other option overall. Last slot goes to a support slash debuffer or sustain, depending on if you're doing sustained or sustainless. If you're doing sustained, then overall the best option is Permanent Terrae Donning, but you can very much run someone like Huofo or someone else that is available, such as a Venturian or a healer like Luocha that can also help you generate some skill points. Just use whatever best option is available to you. So for the best example, I'm going to use this. If you don't want to do a 3 DPS setup, so you don't want to run Black Swan or Sampo or anything like that, in that case, you can sub out this slot for, again, a support or a debuffer. I love running Cypher with this team just because she's really fast and can apply a bunch of dots, while also having debuffs that is very good for the team. But you can very much sub out for someone like Silverwolf as well. If you want a debuffer slash less dot focus, unless you have E2, you can honestly use someone like Xiaochu, or a support such as someone like Ruan Mei or also Robin. Depending on the team setup, you can also use Cyrene, so a team could look like this. If you are using Cyrene, ensure the other slot is another air. Otherwise, your ultimate is going to be super slow to charge, since usually with Cyrene, you want to have a full team of airs or remembrance. You can mitigate it more with E2, but even with E2, you want to ensure you just have at least 2 other characters to help her with that, so it's 3 out of 4, just so you can get your ultimate quick. So a team could look like this. But to just sub out the team here and just put it back to the best team, so I'm just going to go ahead and put Black Swan back here. If you were to run Sustainless, you have a few options of the ones I mentioned. Primarily going to Robin, Ruan Mei for the buffers, and then for debuffers, that still would go to someone like Cypher especially, or also Silverwolf, or even someone like Xiaochu. Xiaochu would be more of a downgrade unless you have E2, so personally I would recommend running Cypher especially, or at least someone like Silverwolf in that slot. And that is the full Hysilens 4.0 updated guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, drop a like, would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of style content, and I'll see you later. Peace out.